I love the neuroscience piece. And why is that? Why is it that some women have a hard time talking about money?
I find it more African women, talking about money is like you don't talk about that. It's taboo. You don't want to be cracked. You don't want to show off.
How you went from an accountant to a business coach and a financial resilience strategist. So tell me how that all started for you.
I think the resilience part is what makes me love what I do. That's why I decided to leave accounting.
Do you coach CEOs, business leaders? Like, how did that begin?
So I coach women in business and in leadership, and I give them financial resilience strategies using neuroscience.
How you brainwash yourself. It's an active thing. I don't think it has to be hard. I think it's fun. I think it's so fun when you can just be like, what am I going to impregnate in my brain today? If you found something, I know there's something for you men, but for your wives, your sisters, your mothers, your cousins, your aunts, I don't care who it is, please send this podcast to them because it is so powerful. Welcome to Make Things Happen with Diana Pagano. I came from struggle, living life on survival mode, and later found myself living in that same vicious cycle. Life is meant to be so much more than settling. Are you ready to stop dreaming for what could be and turn those dreams into reality? I thought so. Well, get ready to live life on your terms. Hello and welcome to the Make Things Happen podcast with Diana Pagano. Today I have Phuti Pillow, who is an accountant turned business coach and a financial resilience strategist. And I'm so honored to have her here on our episode today. Welcome, Phuti.
Thank you for having me, Diana.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this amazing conversation. I mean, we talked a little bit before on all the things that I think we're aligned in so many things about just the power of our mind. And it's not just NLP, which is amazing, but there's so much more that you bring to the table in terms of your understanding. And I want to learn more of how you went from an accountant to a business coach and a financial strategist. Resilience. It's not just financial strategist, a financial resilience strategist. I think it's important to preface that, right? Because there's one thing with financial strategists, which amazing, you need some strategy with your finances, but this is resilience, and I love that you have that in there. So tell me how that all started for you.
I think the resilience part is what makes me love what I do. That's why I decided to leave accounting. I had to be in business because my husband moved to a much smaller town where it was quite difficult to get work as an accountant, but I'd always wanted to be in business. Why resilience? For me, it's you can have all the strategies as you rightfully say, but it's the resilience that will keep you going 10 years, 15, 20 years later. And I like that because, for example, as an accountant, people think you're going to teach them or talk to them about their numbers, how to increase sales, revenue. It's about the strategies that you put in place to make sure that you survive the good times and the bad times. So that's why I like that financial resilience.
Oh wow. So you got into doing that and now you coach different, you're a business coach. So do you coach CEOs, business leaders? Like how did that begin?
So I coach women in business and in leadership, uh, and I give them financial resilience strategies using neuroscience and mainly neuroscience and neuroencoding. And why that also is because it's not necessarily, most of the times you know what you're supposed to do, right? But your wiring and your framing sometimes blocks you from actually doing what you actually want, especially when it comes to money. And mostly with women, they don't want to talk about their money. It's like they'd rather talk about their funeral. So I try and integrate all of that because what I've found is when people present with the money situation, it's a part of a problem. It's a symptom to a much deeper situation. So that's why I add the neuroscience and NLP in all my coaching.
I love the neuroscience piece. And why is that? Why is it that some women, and I think you coach a lot of women in business, have a hard time talking about money?
Socializing, like how we've been socialized, it's the environment. Look, I'm South African, so I find it more African women, talking about money is like you don't talk about that. It's taboo. You don't want to be cracked. You don't want to show off. You don't want to. So it's a big part of the culture as well. But I think natural, it's not just, I've done work with people in Singapore, in Malaysia, in the US as well as colleagues, right? And the money situation is, I find that we have similar limitations, especially when we're women. I've just found it. And I think it's got more than anything is how we socialize.
I love that you say that, and it's also in many other cultures, right? I mean, you see it with African women, but there's so many cultures that I believe have this facade that the man makes all the money, the man's a breadwinner. And so who am I to make this money, right? And there's been some limitations, I feel, just generational belief of money, and I think that that hinders you because you could be so successful in your business, you can have all the talent in the world, but there's a block. So talk to me about how the financial, resilience piece comes in. You talk about neuroscience, and I really want anyone listening here, whether you're a male or a female, right? I mean, yes, we're talking about females because they're the underdogs, I feel sometimes in the finance of having the mindset that a woman can make money just as much as a man can, and that there is that block because I believe fundamentally, as you do, Pruti, that the belief that we have about whatever the heck it is, right? In this situation, we're talking about finances, your money, and that oftentimes, I should say 100% of the time, it's because of the alignment or lack of alignment that we're in with our belief and the thoughts and the things that continue to reinforce the very thing that either we're aligned with or we're not aligned with. So talk to me about a situation and an example for anybody listening now. Again, male or female doesn't matter. We all have a human brain, of an indicator that there might be a blockage from really having that financial resilience.
There's so many examples, but one, especially, let's talk about women, male or female, but I've found
Yeah.
the most obvious one that I would come across is religion. Religion. I had a
Mm.
client whose business was doing extremely well, but she had a cap over 1 million in our currency. Over 1 million would mean that it taints a relationship with God, right? She's going to be too rich, and rich people are greedy people. And I've had that. I've had a group of women that are coached, but they in North Africa, and for them, doing better or their revenue hitting a certain amount meant that they'll perform better than their husbands. And that will create a problem when it comes to the submission and all of that. So those are real limitations that even if you never say them out, they block you. So you find that you self-sabotage when you get to a certain level. You self-sabotage. Another thing is where you've grown up with a certain class of people, right? And when you start doing well and your business starts growing, you realize that you're going to have to let those people go.
So
Start because you just will not fit in with them. And people just keep defaulting to that comfort zone and keep defaulting to that comfort zone.
that is so true because it's almost like, and this has been such a thing for women especially, is that they shrink themselves because in their minds it's I don't want to make more than my husband, or I don't want to be judged because I make a lot of money. Even with religion, as you mentioned, I know growing up with my mom, being Catholic, and my mom taught me faith in God. I mean, I owe it to her for the faith that I have, and it's only grown since, every day it grows. I don't think it ever stops growing. But one of the things that was so evident was that money is the root of all evil. And so I didn't understand when I was young, is like, what does that mean? Like money's bad. But all I did was strive for more because we didn't have any extras ever, right? We grew up in a small two-bedroom apartment with a family of six. So that is so single-handedly ties into what you're saying, Pootie, and that relationship almost, right, with money and how you see yourself and what is it that you believe in. And you mentioned a client, if she makes over $1 million, it means that I'm not worthy in God's eyes, right? And so I do believe there's a part of that that I will comment, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts. When you're chasing the money, right? And this is what I talk about even in my book, The More Mindset. When you're chasing the money and have no purpose outside of just making the dollar, and you lose yourself because then you arrive to the money and you look around at what's left, what's around, right? What else is there, right? That's not true fulfillment, right? But having the abundance of saying, I'm going to grow my business twice, three times, 5 million, $10 million, or 50, whatever the heck your heart desires, is not a sin. And I'm not looking to speak biblical terms here, but that's the part where I feel like is missing, and I always say, "Wear your blessings well," because we were meant to live life abundantly. I don't think God created us to not have abundance, and how do we use the abundance that we have to really contribute, right, to the world and with the gifts that we were given? So what is your take? Because you mentioned, obviously, this you sparked that as far as one of your clients. What is the strategy to get them to start attracting the right things, to be okay going bigger in your business, to not label it whatever, that they're labeling it at that moment, right?
So the biggest thing you mentioned it is alignment. You gotta be aligned. Your goals and what you want, your desires, and your subconscious processes. I don't know, your thought patterns have to be aligned. It has to be okay within you to be well off, right? Meaning, say in the case of my client who had that limitation, I had to show one seed, you don't know how many apples are going to come out from that. I had to look at it that way to say, the more your business does well, the more people you can help, the more you can give to charity. Because at the heart of it, it's a fear of rejection. And most people, that's a big fear for us. Most people fear rejection. So I will no longer be worthy. You mentioned it, but it's because the people, my community will reject me because now I no longer belong. Because our brains were never created for us to do well. They're created to help us survive. And we know as human beings, exclude, yes, exclusion at the core, as a human being, exclusion could actually mean death. Because when we're growing up as babies, when you're rejected, when no one's taking care of you, you could die because no one cares about you. So those are wirings or patterns that we grow up with. And as subconsciously, you're like, oh my gosh, if the people in my community see me as well off, I will no longer belong. So now I must find a new group, if at all. And most people don't even want to consider that. So I'd rather just stay small and fitting.
And stay in your comfort
So
zone.
that alignment, we make you see that you being a well off, however you define that, will make you be more useful to that very community.
Absolutely, and how you can, it's a shift too. It's like you see it, you're on a page, right? And you're judging the page of what it would be like if you made a million, if you became a millionaire, for example, and the social circles you're in don't align with that. You're just in a different playing field, right? Would you say, Pootie, you're in a different playing field, and when you don't see and hang around with people that are doing things in their life that aren't ambitious or aren't being as successful as you wanna be, right? When you don't have anyone in that circle, then what circle are you looking at? I'm a big believer that you outgrow certain relationships, that not all relationships were meant to be in your life for ever. That sometimes the relationships that we have are here for a season, and there's value that maybe you added to their life or they added to your life, or maybe it was something that you learned by going through that, whether it's a, romantic relationship or a friend or a neighbor, right? And that's hard because when we want to shrink ourselves to belong, but yet you've outgrown that group of friends or whatever, you are a byproduct of your environment. They've done research that has shown that you put the most positive person in a negative circle, and they may not all be negative, but they have a belief that this is my status quo, and I'm not looking to go bigger. I'm not worthy of more, and those that are sinners or whatever the mindset is, right? It could be so many different ones, right? And so that's unfortunately what you surround yourself is what will eventually become your reality. And I know that you and I are so big with neuroscience. I'm so obsessed with neuroscience, and we talk a lot about that. And so when people are saying whatever they're saying, language that is traveling from your friend, from your coworker, from your teacher, it doesn't matter who it is. When it's traveling into this right here, your ears, you accept it as something, even if you think they're crazy. The fact that you're surrounding yourself with them, there's been studies and research that have shown that that will impact you in a negative way because it's not what you want, right? And so, how do you get people to see that, hey, maybe your environment you've outgrown, or get over the fact that I don't wanna, they don't they shrink themselves, but they don't wanna shrink themselves. It's not what they genuinely want. So there's a lack of alignment because you're staying small, you're staying in your comfort zone. And how do you work with someone to get over that hump? And really, if anyone's listening here, any woman listening here, and I talk about men too, but for the most part, a lot of women struggle with this. What is your number one go-to? I'm sure there's a lot of things in our toolkits that we can talk about, but what would you say that they should start at?
So the biggest shift comes when you can break through your subconscious limitations. There are many, but most times in a coaching situation, someone will pinpoint one or two, and we work on those, and you find that a lot of others will fall off. So one way I do it, the easiest way I do it, especially when there's a lot of resistance, a simple exercise that I will do, okay, is to write down more than 100 reasons why if so let's say you've got a block around making more than 1 million rand in your business or $1 million. You write down more than 100 reasons, and it can take you 2 weeks. It can take you 3 weeks, but you've got to write down. Once my business makes more than $1 million, it will allow me to, and you write them. Buy chocolates every day, whatever. And some people stop at 4 and then 5, and what that does, it's repetition. So one way to shift the subconscious is to stop thinking logically and go deeper. And when you force yourself to go there and see yourself, once you're over $1 million turnover, what will that allow you? And as you write, I've gone up to 250 reasons, right? And what that does is it stops being about logic. It goes now deeper and deeper. I'll buy my mom a new house. I'll buy, you see. And that's one way where it breaks that. And then we can start with, because they've seen it. Remember now what that does is you've seen it. You've written it. The process of writing down, remember,
Yes.
all the parts of your brain activate. So we're doing all of that in one. Just the act of writing. I love writing. So I give homework in all my work. I make people write because
Yes, me too.
the sensors that activate in your brain when you've got a pen in hand and writing things down, they're real shift. And of course, then we start the goals, the planning, all of that. And you've seen it. You've seen it on paper. You've written it down. You see, so that's one way to break that barrier, that logical barrier that most people have.
I love so much. This is so amazing. I'm always writing. Like I'll be on a call with my sister, like, and I'm writing. I don't know why. Like I'm just such a writer. I don't just doodle stars. I write words. And so I love that you said that because that's one of the things I do as well. I'm sure you do this with your coaching or training that I do. I'm like, get your pen. I don't just do it on your notes on your phone. There's power in writing because and even the connection, right? When you're writing, there's a connection in your brain. When you say, I want to buy my mom a house, actually, that's been a dream of mine, if truth be told. But when you're writing down, there's no you can't stop this from happening. It's an automatic visualization. If you say, I want a car, I want a big SUV that fits my entire family, whatever it is that you're writing, you're visualizing that very thing that you want. And so one of the things that a lot of things I'm obsessed with, but I was so obsessed with what you said about writing it down, number one, but interrupting the pattern, it sounds like, because like you said, when you give your brain a different direction, because right now you're thinking logically, well, Diana, look at my bank account, or Diana, look at this, or Phuti, right? I'm sure you've been told many times, like, this is just my reality. And it's not about being delusional, even though I've been judged by saying I'm delusional. And I'm like, I'll be delusional. I'll be delusional. I'll be delusional. That is my middle name. I'm delusional, Diana. But I know what I want and I know what I want to give my brain the target. If it doesn't get there, then it doesn't get there. But guess what? I just raised my vibrational energy. I just raised my awareness and yeah, right. And parts of our brain gets awakened. The parts of our brain that we don't always, sorry, the parts of our brain that we don't always tap into, right? Like you mentioned that there's different parts of our brain that gets awakened. And I think that that's what it is. It's awakening the part of your brain that isn't always being tapped into from an unconscious level. So what other neuroscience strategies do you provide your clients?
Yeah. So it usually follows through that, né?
Okay.
And so they would written it down, and then in NLP they call it future pacing.
Yes.
So you now start. So I don't teach affirmations. I teach. It's more incantation. You have got to see yourself in that. So you can't sit there and say, "Let's talk about weight." That's an easy example. I'm slim. I'm at my fittest. Your body knows. Remember, your brain will reject anything that it sees as false, right? It will reject it. So with incantations is now one way to break through the subconscious is repetition. It's either a significant emotional event or repetition. So part of writing that list, obviously they can't keep repeating the same thing, but part of writing that list, some of the stuff will come back. That some of the themes are the same. So that's repetition. That's one way. Or a significant emotional event. What do I mean by that? I don't know, well, maybe you may have heard of someone who maybe used to smoke, say he was a chain smoker. By accident, they burned their little, babies will run around with topless and they burn them. And that person, for that, they stop. They stop. That's a significant emotional event that switches something in your brain, right? One way to recreate that process is through repetition, right? So what then we do is I teach them a process where I call it the identity statement, where you write down. So now we go through a whole process where you write down, your favorite person, whoever inspires you, and you write down all these fantastic characters about them, right? and they write down, or they write, we go as far as, again, 30, 40. What am I doing? I'm breaking through that limitation. I'm fantastic, fabulous. They don't say that yet. I just say, imagine your favorite person, or what you imagine people saying about you, adjective, verb, and they write through that process. And at the end of the day, I say, pick 3 from each column, verbs, adjectives, and they create I am, and they write all those beautiful things they wrote about themselves. I tell you, people cry when they see that, because remember, what you idolize in someone, it's you usually identify it because it's deep within you. And we go through that, and now the exercise becomes every single day with movement, brain science. Remember, brain body connection.
Yes.
You put on your, yeah, it's some process. You put on your earphones, you play your music, you walk around. So that's brain movement. That's, again, different parts of the brain activate brain movement, and you repeat your statement, your identity statement to yourself. You do that for at least 20 days. And even if you will never say it out to someone else, subconsciously, you know who you are. You've already attached to that identity that you've given yourself. What then that does automatically is you start, the reticular activating system.
Yes.
You start looking for those opportunities.
That gets awakened. You just ignited something. I love what you said. And when you write down, you said the exercise was write down what things you like in another person that you admire.
So, because I work, I'm passionate about women. I'm a girl. I understand what girls go through. I work with men, but my favorite clients are women, because we're vulnerable enough.
Of course.
And and most women cannot say, I'm fantastic, I'm amazing. They cannot say it to save their lives, right?
It's true.
So as I say, imagine, and maybe people who are crazy about you, saying stuff about you that you would like to hear. There's one way they can tap into that. Or your favorite, the person who inspires you the most. You can talk to that person, describe, oh, I like them because they're vibrant. I like them because they're brave, or whatever, adjectives, and the things that they're doing, right? The verb, they are doing what? And that's how, because that's them talking about them, but not necessarily facing it in that way. And when they
somebody that you would
go through a long list and they pick
sorry, just to connect this. So they're talking to somebody or about somebody that they admire.
someone that they admire, or they're imagining some people who admire them, right?
Okay. And what they're saying about them.
So what that does is it dissociates you from who you are.
Yes.
Because we're afraid to talk about it. So you dissociate from this person, but these are characters that you usually admire in other people. And we know that what you admire in other people is something that you can sort of identify with.
Absolutely. There's something inside of you that's different. So I do something similar to that, and it's a very different angles, but I love the one that you mentioned, because I feel like I always say, the first thing to self-love is to be kind to yourself, but also write down all the things you love about yourself. And I've had it to where some people I've coached, they can't even come up with 1 or 2. It's like that's it. And I'm like, well, if you could love something about yourself, what would that be? So it's very similar, but I love that you say, or even saying the same thing that you mentioned, if somebody was going to say something nice about you, what would they say? And it's usually like, my kids say this, or, and they start somewhere. So I love that. And this technique, when you do the work, when you do the thing that Pooja just mentioned, you're giving your brain a new direction. And people don't often realize the power. Like, that's it, Pootie, we have to write this down, and all of a sudden we just change our lives, right? It's what's happening chemically in our brain that you don't see, right? And I also love so much that you mentioned, the what's real, what's like a realist, right? A realist. I can't tell you how many times I'm around a realist, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you see as true. It doesn't matter what the odds are. What matters is what you're accepting to be so. And could you be the person that could change this around? Could you be the person to do something different? So I love that you mentioned that, because that's where most people, would you say, live there. They live as a realist.
It's comfort zone. It's easy. It's really, really easy to say, I'm just like this. This is how things are. And then blame, or, it really is. You're just cutting yourself too much slack, because if you're not happy with what the way things are, you've got to move. You've got to change. You've got to interrupt the pattern, and change and go somewhere else. You said you're delusional. My own family have said I'm brainwashing myself. I said, yeah, I've got brain.
I love that. Yes, you got to brainwash. You got to be you single handedly, for anyone listening, I got to say this because Pootie knows this so well, and I do too. You have to single-handedly brainwash yourself first. First and foremost. I don't care what coach you're seeing and all this other stuff, which is amazing, by the way, that's a different conversation, or what videos you're looking at. You single-handedly have to convince yourself and be your own best, asset in terms of allowing yourself to brainwash yourself, because if you're not brainwashing you, the TV, the radio, social media, somebody else is taking over. It's like that wheel. Yes, God governs everything, right? He gave us free will. He literally gave us free will, regardless of what God you believe in, right? And so when you know that the only way that you're going to go to those bad feelings that you get, or, feeling like, what if this fails, or feeling insufficient, or not feeling enough, is because you're allowing yourself to go to that playing field versus changing the channel, which I often talk about. And in your situation, you mentioned, what you're how you brainwash yourself. It's an active thing. I don't think it has to be hard. I think it's fun. I think it's so fun when you can just be like, what am I going to impregnate in my brain today? What if today I get surprised? What if something amazing happens and you just have this level of just anticipation? It's a beautiful thing, isn't it, Pootie? When you start living life on
It
purpose.
it's absolutely amazing. And I use the same identity statement. I mean, I could be in a tough meeting, a business meeting. And in my head, I'm repeating I have my identity statement. I've been practicing it. It's almost 5 years now. And it comes and I repeat it and I repeat it in my head as I'm going in that meeting. And because I'm anchoring myself to who I am
Love it.
and who I am. I've decided who I am and I hold on to that. I always say it's my story and I'm sticking to it. And I do it.
I love that. I love that because I love that you said, I'm deciding who I am. So if I'm feeling tired and it's like, well, that's who I am today, but does feeling tired gonna serve you for that presentation, for that meeting, for that thing? Then you look at yourself in the freaking mirror, like Pootie said, or you're driving, you're saying, I'm bringing all the right energy. And that's the part, right? But you could feel tired, but who do you want to be? You get to decide what you bring to the table. And I think it's not that big thing that we do, or like the whole year I'm going to be unstoppable. It's like every day. It's like every day, right? Like if I'm tired, I'm saying today I'm bringing the right energy, the right energy. I'm bringing more energy, or whatever that is. So sorry, you were mentioning this and it just reminded me so much of how people actually believe that this is delusional, because I don't feel like I have energy. I don't feel confident, but you get to decide who you're going to be today. You get to
You
decide,
get to
like you said.
you get to decide. Look, and it's brainwashing because the clients of mine who they're doing amazing stuff, fantastic things, and they come there and like, I'm not as good, and that's a lie. And I look, I say, my goodness, look where your business was 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Look what you've achieved, and they still feel like they're not good enough. That's a negative brainwash because that's not true either. you know, so we would rather you know, sit there and bash ourselves. And another simple technique that I use, and I love it. A simple thing to say when you brush your teeth, because habits, thing you do have, you must attach progress is attached to your habits, right? And I said when you brush your teeth, I'm excited to go brush my teeth. You know why? Because I look in the mirror, I look at myself in the eyes and say, Pootie, I love you. So many people struggle with that. I love you. You have to fall hopelessly in love with yourself, not to be arrogant, not
100%.
but just to bet on you. You that's what I do. A lot of people struggle with that. You will not believe telling themselves that they love themselves. And what do you want? Most especially women will say, I don't want to be poor. No, that's what you don't want. What's it?
Ah, you're speaking my language. I knew that's why I loved you so much when I saw you on Instagram. I fell in love with Pootie. I'm like, gosh, when she talks with such conviction, and I can't tell you enough, I know a lot of people are like, oh, you don't have 1 million subscribers. I don't want you on my show. And that's me personally. I'm like, okay, wait till I get 1 million subscribers. So anybody listen on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, make sure you subscribe because when I have 1 million subscribers, I'm looking for talent. I'm not looking for status. I'm not looking at what million followers you have. I don't care what show you've been on. I'm looking for real, raw, candid talent. And I could say that because I don't have 1 million followers, but I'm telling you, even at 1 million followers on my podcast, Pootie, when I saw you talking about such conviction and the way our brain works, I feel like we are just like sisters from beyond, right? And I just love your approach so much because it's so needed. It's so needed, and it's not life isn't supposed to be hard. And yes, even during difficult and challenging times, that we have so control over how we show up. I love the habits you there's so much wisdom in this episode, and I'm so excited. I feel like we can sit here and talk for hours on end. You mentioned earlier about women when you ask them what they want. I think that that's been a big one. Where you and I talked before this episode briefly, but and I said you ask a kid, especially during the holidays, right? You ask a kid, "What do you want for Christmas?" And whatever holiday it is, what do and they especially from Santa, and they go down and they write a list. They can't, the list is like this long, but you ask a woman, and doesn't matter, 32, 52, middle-aged, 65, and what do you want? And they're like deer in headlights, right? Because they can't, there's a real blockage. So anyone listening here, when ask yourself, what do I want? Or even if I'm asking you right now, what is it that you want to accomplish at the end of the year? What do you want to accomplish this year? What do you want to accomplish in 30 days and 90 days? And if you can't articulate that, there's a blockage 100% happening. And don't feel bad. I encourage you to do the strategies that Phuti mentioned here. And so, gosh, there's so much wisdom here. I feel like we can talk forever. Where could people find you? I'm gonna have one or two more questions, but in the meantime, where could people find you on Instagram? And I'm gonna definitely put links on this episode as well.
Thank you. So Instagram, Phuti.mpelo, my name, dot Mpelo. Instagram is, and I'm also on LinkedIn. I just love Instagram,
Yes.
you know.
I know. Instagram is a different flavor with LinkedIn. It's like, yeah, no, bad. We got to be everywhere, Pooty.
Yeah.
Usually with social media. I know it gets overwhelming, doesn't it sometimes? But we're gonna write this down. I am managing all my content. My team is doing an amazing job on LinkedIn and TikTok and all the things. And then tomorrow is gonna be like a new platform. But I think that what I love about this episode and really make things happen podcast and you is the impact that we're making with the things and the gifts that we're given. And yes, there's a lot of educational pieces that we learn, whether it's from, co-creator Dr. Richard Bandler with NLP. And you mentioned, other things you learned from a neuroscience perspective from the gentleman from South Africa. But
Joseph McClellan.
yes, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I know you mentioned some great tools that he has. And so all of this just impacts our lives and the fact that we get to I feel so honored when I coach someone. I feel so honored even on the podcast that anyone is spending their time listening to this because I'm very results driven. I have a feeling you are too, Putu, when you do when with your coaching. I'm very results driven with my podcast, with my coaching as well. I won't work with someone that I don't believe I'll not me personally bring results, but that I can really impact somebody's life. As a coach, I'm sure you do the same with who you're coaching and making sure that my job isn't done unless there's results. And so I feel that way with this podcast. And so you drop such nuggets for women listening into this podcast. For you men, if you found something, I know there's something for you men, but for your wives, your sisters, your mothers, your cousins, your aunts, I don't care who it is, please send this podcast to them because it is so powerful. It's might sound so simple and so small to some people that are like, that's it. We got to write things down. We got to tell ourselves this when we're brushing our teeth. But let me tell you, it will rewire your brain. You don't see it instantly, but you will feel it. You will feel a change. And as Putzi mentioned, when you have a consistency for 10 days, 21 days, I mean, there's a thing says 21 days builds a habit. I always say do it for 30, do it for 5 days. Just start with five and then you'll keep going because statistics show when you start something, the first step is one of the hardest things. And then every step after that becomes a little bit lighter, would you say?
Yes, absolutely. And remember, you mentioned it's rewiring. All this work that we do, it's just rewiring and reframing. That's it. And the more you do it, repetition, the more you do it, you start believing it. You know that exercise most speakers will tell you, look around the room, tell me how many red things you do. And we all look red things. And then they ask you, how many brown things are there? And you're like, huh? Huh? Right?
Yeah.
Because you were focusing on the red. And then they tell you now, count the brown things. And you find there's like 5 or 10. Your brain was not looking for brown things. So they were not there for you. And this is what we're doing. We're rewiring the brain, that activate the reticular activating system to look for what you want. If I believe that I'm a multimillionaire, my brain will make me or help me or work with me, alignment, in becoming that millionaire. In this, so when you start, small children do it naturally. Absolutely the great. Yeah, I mean, my son, just ate this thing, some sliced bread, and I'm working very hard to not slow him down because as a mom, you're like, no, you can't say that. I mean, he thinks great.
Yes, I know. They have the biggest imagination, so sometimes society goes and screws them up. But it's our job to help make that less screwed up in the world. I love this so much, and you mentioned, the reticular activating system. I'm obsessed with that thing, and I'm always like, "How can I tap into you?" Reticular activating system. I demand you. I order you right now to do X, Y, Z, and I laugh with it. I have a great relationship with my reticular activating system. RAS. Look it up. It's quantum physics too. And like Putzi said, this is what happens when you rewire your brain, you guys. It's not just this positive thinking voodoo stuff. It is not that. When you rewire your brain starts, like Putzi said, noticing opportunities. So if I'm getting off an elevator, I'm gonna notice someone that's there that maybe I was supposed to speak to. The silliest things. There's that intuition, that thing that you're like, I should call this person. Boom. I should I should say no to that because that doesn't serve me. Boom. I should, get on my camera and talk about this thing that changed my sister's life. Boom. That boom. You know what that boom is? It's that inspiration that you got only because of the rewiring that you did. If you don't rewire your brain, you're never going to do the thing. You're never going to step up to the plate. You're never going to take the action to really make things happen. Last thing, Pootie, I'm so excited. I feel like I can be here forever. What is your routine? Give me your daily routine. Like, what do you do when you wake up? What do you do maybe even your nightly routine? In 30 seconds, if you can.
If I'll get up earlier than everyone, 5, 6, it depends. But then I'm a Christian. I spend time with God. I love reading. That's the big charge for me. And I do my identity statement. I do that. I remind myself who I am. For me, the morning routine is that time with me. It's extremely important for me. And I go all out to make sure that. So the first thing is I'll read the word, pray a bit, and then plan my day. That's just me. Once I've connected with me in the morning, I believe I can handle anything. It's just
Love it. And you do your identity statements like I am. What else
I
do you
just
do?
repeat now. Yeah, I repeat it now. It's the same. It's been the same. Few words changed, but I repeat it. So with movement, my favorite songs. It's a playlist. Favorite songs. So I move. I bounce on a small rebounder.
I have that in my office at home. Yes. So you listen to music and you're saying your identity statements. And how long do you do that for?
3 songs. So it's about 10 minutes. It's about 10 minutes. Three. If sometimes in the beginning it used to be like 5 songs and it was 10 to 15 minutes. And that's just that. That's all. All I'm doing is I'm reconnecting with me, and of course I have my favorite cup of coffee.
Who doesn't like a favorite cup of coffee? And you know what? I think that's it. It's about priming yourself for your day. That's it.
Right.
Let life happen. Don't worry about what might be, what may not be. Just know that today's a beautiful day. Today's a great day, and you wake up the way that you did. Sorry, that was longer than 30 seconds, but it was powerful. And wow, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to tell our listeners at Make Things Happen podcast that we haven't covered? Any mic drop moment that you want to do? No pressure. Anything?
No, for me it's just that let's just do it, and please let's mind the environment. Your environment is much more powerful than your willpower. So make your environment work for you. If you're around people who are afraid of whatever, of growing businesses or losing weight, whatever it is, find a new environment. That's it.
That's it.
Mind your environment.
Love it, love it, love it. The wrong environment will keep you small. The right environment will take you places you never thought possible because you're choosing those environments. Thank you so much, Pootie. This is amazing. We're definitely going to have a part 2 with Pootie. Thank you so much for joining this Make Things Happen podcast with Pootie and myself, Diana, your host. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do so that you can get notified on the next episode and that you will not want to miss.